Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Quarantine Series. I'm your host, Kabir Segal, coming to you live from the ATL, Atlanta, Georgia. I want to thank everyone around the world for tuning in. I also want to thank those watching downstairs for watching. Hi, Mom and Dad. Thanks for tuning in. Look, this is the Quarantine Series. This is an effort to shine the spotlight on creative individuals of all types, the musicians, the filmmakers, the authors, the conceptual thinkers. These are the folks that are creating the great stories and content that are sort of provoking and challenging us and keeping us entertained in this year of pandemic and international tumult. Here, if you can, please support the projects you learn about on this broadcast. It's very important. Also, it's important to think local, I think, and support those in your community. Maybe it's a local bookshop, a local film festival. Let's try to be there for the creative community as much as we can. All right, if you want to learn who will be on the show, pretty simple. Just go to one of my social media platforms and subscribe, and you will be then notified and in the loop as who's on, when they're on. You can start studying for what you want to ask them, researching them. And of course, if you have a question, just drop it in the comment field. And no matter if you're watching here live or if you're watching on a rebroadcast, we'll be sure to opine to your questions and comments and queries. And lastly, let us know where you're watching from. We have an all Southern barbecue today. We got Georgia in the house. We got North Carolina in the house. Let us know where you're watching from. Drop a comment in the comment field, city, state, county, area code, zip code. I'd like to know where everyone's tuning in from. All right. Now for the best part of the show, we get to meet the amazing artist. Truly are an amazing artist, a terrific filmmaker, award-winning documentary filmmaker and photographer. So she's a hyphenated individual. We love hyphenated people here. We're going to talk about her new film, Proper Pronouns, and we're going to talk about just sort of the social impact of this very, very powerful project and film. She's doing things at the highest level. Please welcome to the show the wonderful Meg Daniels. Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for being here. I got to ask you, Meg, firstly, how are you? How are you doing during this period of quarantine? And maybe how has it affected some of your projects?
Just like everybody else, I'm psychotic, a little bit crazy, but that has given me the chance to work on a project, actually. In March, I started working on a new film. It's an episodic documentary titled Taking Orders, and it's about small businesses in North Carolina and how they're surviving or not surviving or struggling, the hurdles that they are jumping, the hoops that they're also jumping through, and whether or not they're closing their doors. We're getting into a time period after Thanksgiving and all the Thanksgiving travel, we're seeing surges here, and our governor is starting to put shelter in place restrictions, not full shelter in place yet, but we have curfew starting at 10 p.m. till 5 a.m. So that's really affecting restaurants. So luckily, this started as a podcast, and I kind of developed a bubble of businesses. There are 4 in this current project that we have all been together for the last, it feels like 3 years at this point, since March. So I'm filming a candy store owner who at 9 years old in 2012 opened a candy shop in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I'm working with a restaurant owner who has been in business since 2012. And he's in Carborough, North Carolina, and he's a French restaurant. I'm working with another restaurant also whose mission is a little bit different. She does a lot of nonprofit work and events, and she specializes in Indian cuisine. And our fourth business is a CrossFit gym in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So we're trying to really have a spectrum of businesses to show, the gyms here have been allowed to stay open through a loophole, is what they've been referred to, because our attorney general said that people who need to work on rehab, physical rehab, need access to gyms.
Yeah.
So they have stayed open. But a lot of people don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
So
I hear you. Well, tell me, Meg, how are you spending your typical day in quarantine? Is there a structure to it? Is there a routine? And if so, what is it? Do you wake up at the same time? Is there a cup of coffee every day?
that's one of the nice things about quarantine is no, I have no structure. I have no, filmmakers don't have structure in their lives at all. Yeah, I get up and I do the breakfast thing, and I have three rescue dogs. So we do our little session where we do some obedience work with them. And I say we because my husband is home also. And then I sit down and I start editing, because this first episode is with the composer as well as our audio engineer. And so, just putting finishing touches on the first episode of taking orders. And then it's lunchtime, and then some more QT with the dogs, which is wonderful because it, brings me back to a level of where I'm not going to jump off a bridge trying to edit this new film, and then try to get some exercise in, and then it's dinner time and wine.
Sounds like a full life. Very cool. I want to ask you, let's talk about your film, Proper Pronouns. What is this film about, and why did you gravitate to this story?
I grew up in the North, and although I grew up Catholic and I have best friends and family members that are part of the LGBTQ community, there were struggles that they went through, of course, but love prevailed. So family members and friends, some family members and friends had a really hard time dealing with their decision to come out. And yes, there were, tumultuous periods where people didn't speak to one another. And in the end, love prevailed. So when I moved to North Carolina, which is the Bible Belt, and I saw family members and friends, or I'm sorry, not my family members and friends, but acquaintances or friends of friends, they would come out to their family and scripture prevailed. So I had a really hard time with it. And this was a thesis project I started with my co-producer, Manny Robinson, back in 2017. And I needed to understand how scripture prevailed when family members were just completely walking away from the loved ones that had come out to them. This is the first transgender group of the transgender community that I have ever been a part of. They've accepted me, thankfully, wholeheartedly. But I met Liam. He was one of the first graduates of the divinity program at Wake Forest University, which has deep roots with the Baptist religion. So that was a big deal. And I just said, I need to meet Liam. I need to see what he has done, because he's made great strides for the trans community, but also, he's raised awareness throughout the 3-year period he was at the divinity school. So I reached out to him. He was, wonderful as far as wanting to be a part of the film. We started working together, and then he introduced me to Dawn, Deborah, and Michael. and they just had to be a part of the film, especially the trans people of color, Deborah and Michael, because they have so many strikes against them here in the Bible Belt just because of their skin color. And just the self-reflexive film that this has become for me, because I left Catholicism and now have become an atheist. I needed to understand more about who I was and how I understood religion as an outsider, because I just have not been involved in religion. I've not embraced religion since I was about 13. So they taught me a lot, that I don't have to cringe. I no longer have to cringe when I walk into a welcoming space of worship, which for me, that was very different. As you know, when I was Catholic, I was sitting next to people and I was supposed to love thy neighbor. And then I would leave and I would see other Catholics not loving thy neighbor because of who they identified as. And so that's kind of how all of this project, everything came to fruition for me over the course of, 2 years.
Yeah, yeah. Well, how did the story change in the edit? Like you go in with a story idea, and when you're in the edit, you're kind of peeling away layers, probably. So, how did that change in the edit session?
Manny, my thesis partner. He's he's a really good editor, and he took the reins in the editing process from about January 2019, February 2019 to about the end of April 2019. And we went in with, we have so much great footage, and we wanted to tell their backstories. And, it would have been a 7-hour film. So Manny did a wonderful job of editing and peeling back the layers in a way that really stuck to our story about how we had to stay on track with the fact that the 4 of them are ministers trying to prove to their community and the cisgender community that they belong in the pulpit. And then in June, I continued filming Deborah and Michael because our first cut did not have enough of the 2 of them in it. So I continued filming and editing. Manny had to take on some other jobs that did not allow him to continue working on the project. And I just really had to make sure that Deborah and Michael had as much screen time as Liam and Dawn did, to the best of my ability. They need so much more, but we have to leave things on the cutting room floor, as everybody knows. So I just continued to peel back the layers as far as where they fit, how to introduce them. They all played a different role as far as what they brought to the table. Liam is extremely philosophical. Michael just does this really great job of summarizing what the community can do as far as the civil rights movement goes today, the 21st century civil rights movement. Deborah has this wonderful outlook on what is to come and where she is in her space and what she can do to help. Right now she's working on helping homeless transgender people, so she brings this other facet to the film as far as the advocacy work that she does. And then Dawn is just this maternal, this wonderful maternal woman with great stories, because she's 70 years old and came out when she was 11 years ago. So They all just play this wonderful role, and it brings all four of them together in ways that I just did not expect. So I kind of had to let the footage go through the footage and then pull clips into the timeline and, just feel the emotion of the character, the participant, um, and just say to myself, okay, what's the best way to get somebody who's walking that fine line of loving thy neighbor and also the unaccepting mindset of the transgender community as how they identify as human beings. I had to look at the clips and the footage that way versus all the wonderful backstories that they have so that it stayed consistent for the narrative arc that we had set out to achieve.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. What did the participants or subjects of the film think of their portrayal in the film? Were they involved in seeing previous cuts? What was their initial feedback?
They had the opportunity because we had a deadline for our thesis in May, so it was very difficult. Manny lives in South Carolina, so he and I are 4 hours apart, and then the ministers are in different towns. So it was very difficult to get all of us together for screenings throughout the editing process. And we had so much footage to go through, we kind of got, behind schedule. So we showed them a first cut, a rough cut. Um, Liam and Diana and Dawn were able to make it. Deborah and Michael were not able to make it to that first one, but they saw the film. They saw the cut via Vimeo. And Liam, Liam and Dawn both said, Michael and Deborah need more screen time. And I said, I agree with you completely. We just hadn't at that point had access to them or been able to bring them into the film within that time frame of which we were trying to achieve a deadline for graduation. So I took that feedback, and after a couple days of trying to wrap my head around the fact that I just graduated from Wake Forest University with an MFA, I started working on the project again. And I went to Asheboro and Charlotte, and I spent time filming them because I agreed completely with their critique of the film. And there were parts that I had to pull out of the film of Liam and Dawn that were in the first cut. And like I said, leave them on the cutting room floor because it was so crucial to get Deborah and Michael in the film. And Liam and I would butt heads sometimes. He's his personality. I love him to death. He has a very strong personality, as I'm sure that came through in the film. So he and I would butt heads, but he did a really good job of providing feedback that made me think about white privilege and how I have white skin and I was born with privilege, and I have to look at Michael and Deborah in a way that makes people understand through filmmaking, through the film, that they weren't born with privilege simply because of their skin color. And that's just, that just sucks. So
Yeah, I hear you. Where can people find this film? Where can they experience it?
right now it's so it can be right now it's in the film festival circuit, and everything has been online. So I'm still waiting to hear back from some other film festivals that I have submitted to. It is accessible through a distributor picked it up for us called Video Project, so it can be licensed for screenings in schools and colleges. Right now, it's not on YouTube. It's not publicly accessible on Vimeo because it is, making the it is on the festival circuit. It is also available on the PBS app. UNC TV, which is our local PBS station, aired it on November 19th, and it is now available for 3 years on the PBS app. I'm pretty sure that's it.
Awesome. Well, I want everyone to go to properpronounsfilm.com. That's properpronounsfilm.com to check out your film and all about the characters and a lot of great material there. Thank you so much, Meg, for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. And
All
I'm
right.
honored.
Awesome. So that's our show today. Everyone, please keep it here and subscribe to learn who will be on the broadcast. Make sure to take care of yourself. Take care of the art. It will always take care of you. Have a great, great day and stay safe.